Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to tackle something that I think is pretty universal.
Yeah, I think everyone's familiar with this one.
Stress. We've got a ton of research on this, lots of academic papers covering all angles,
Psychology,
biology,
biology, even sociology of stress.
even some interesting stuff from Islamic traditions.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think is really cool about this deep dive is that we're going way beyond just saying,
Stress is bad,
yeah,
which everybody already knows.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need us to tell you that.
right, we're going to get into the science of it. We're going to explore some solutions. And honestly, I'm really excited to jump in because I feel like there are going to be some aha moments for sure.
But just starting off right away, one of the things that's really interesting about stress is that it's often oversimplified.
Okay,
People just think of it as a feeling.
you're right.
But it's actually a fundamental biological response to anything that disrupts your body's balance.
So it's like our body is always trying to reach this state of equilibrium. Exactly.
Life just loves throwing curveballs at us.
Exactly. And you know what's even more interesting is that the research you provided actually highlights 11 different definitions of stress.
11.
11.
Wow, that's a lot.
Just that in itself shows you how complex this topic is.
Right.
So it's not just like this one thing.
So how do we even begin to make sense of all of those different definitions?
Well, think about your body as a seesaw. Okay.
Okay.
So always trying to stay level.
Right.
Life throws things on either end. It
Mm.
could be work deadlines,
Okay.
that morning coffee,
Yeah,
even exciting events.
sure.
And stress is basically your system's way of getting back to level ground.
So how does that actually play out? Like, how would someone experience that seesaw effect in their daily life?
So imagine your brain as mission control. Okay.
Okay.
It's constantly scanning for potential threats.
Uh-huh.
Let's say you're running late for a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Mission control spots this threat,
Right.
sends an urgent message to your glands. Think of those as your hormone factories.
Interesting.
And then these factories flood your system with adrenaline and cortisol,
Okay.
which are those hormones that get you ready for action.
Right.
So your heart starts pounding, your focus narrows.
You get that tunnel vision?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might even feel a surge of energy.
Right.
So that entire chain of command, it's called the HPA axis, and it's meant to help you cope with those challenges.
So EPA.
Hypothalamus,
Oh, okay.
pituitary,
Got it. now.
adrenal axis.
Okay, so it's like our body's ancient alarm system
Exactly.
kicking into gear
Yeah.
to help us deal with danger.
Right.
But what happens when that alarm keeps blaring even when there's no real threat?
That's the problem, right?
Right.
When we have chronic stress,
Yeah.
and that's when the system that's meant to be a short-term response
Mhm.
starts to work against us.
Right.
Chronically elevated levels of those stress hormones
Uh,
can wreak havoc on both our bodies and minds.
so this is reminding me of something that was really interesting from the Islamic perspective on stress.
Okay.
The sources talk about things like dhikr, which is, repeating these calming phrases
Yeah.
that can help regulate the mind and body.
Yeah, it's amazing how both science and ancient wisdom seem to be aiming at that same balance,
Well,
just coming from different angles.
Yeah.
But going back to the whole chronic stress thing,
So,
one of the things that was most alarming to me that I came across in the research is the impact it can have on your brain,
oh, really?
specifically the hippocampus.
Okay.
Did you know that chronic stress can actually shrink this key brain area
What?
that's responsible for memory and learning?
That's crazy. I never realized that stress could actually shrink a part of my brain.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So can you explain a little bit more about what the hippocampus does?
So think about the last time you walked into a room and forgot why you were there,
Oh, yeah.
or you struggled to remember someone's name.
Happens all the time.
That's your hippocampus at work. Oh, no.
So it's essential for forming new memories and retrieving old ones.
Wow.
And when chronic stress shrinks it,
Mm-hmm.
those everyday memory glitches can become even worse.
Okay, so stress is literally making us dumber.
Well, it can definitely impair cognitive function.
Okay.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
All right.
The research also shows that the timing of stress significantly affects memory.
Timing. What do you mean?
So mild stress right before learning something new can actually sharpen focus and boost memory.
Well.
Think about that feeling of urgency before an exam.
Oh, like those pretest jitters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can help you retain information.
Interesting.
But stress right before you need to recall information, like during the exam,
Uh-huh.
that can actually hinder your performance.
So a little bit of pretest jitters might be good, but full-blown panic during the test, probably not a good thing.
Exactly. So understanding how and when stress affects your brain can help you use it to your advantage or at least minimize its negative effects. This is all pretty mind-blowing stuff. We've talked about how stress impacts the control center, our
Mm.
brain,
Yeah.
but what about the rest of the body? Is there more to the story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Chronic stress doesn't just affect the brain, it has far-reaching consequences for various other systems.
So we're talking full body stress here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, let's dive into those details.
Let's do it. So let's talk about how chronic stress affects the rest of your body, because it's not just a mental game,
Right.
it's like a ripple effect impacting all these different systems.
Okay, so we're talking full body stress here.
Oh, yeah.
Where should we start?
Let's talk about your cardiovascular system.
Okay.
Remember those stress hormones we talked about?
Adrenaline and cortisol.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're meant to give you a temporary boost, but when they're constantly elevated,
Uh-huh.
it puts a lot of strain on your heart.
Okay, so it's like we're constantly revving our engine at high speed,
Exactly.
and eventually something's got to give.
Exactly.
No wonder it increases the risk of heart disease. But how does that actually happen? What's going on in our bodies?
Well, chronic stress can lead to high blood pressure and inflammation of the arteries,
Okay.
which sets the stage for heart attacks and strokes.
So those stress hormones are basically damaging the pipes that carry blood throughout our bodies.
Pretty much.
Okay, I'm starting to understand the seriousness of this.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing our gut, which always seems to react to stress, isn't spared either.
Oh, the gut definitely takes a hit.
Right.
Chronic stress can turn your gut into a battlefield.
Oh, wow.
Those stress hormones, they mess with your digestion.
Uh-huh.
They increase inflammation in your gut lining,
Oh, no.
and they can even disrupt the balance of good and bad bacteria in your intestines.
So it's not just in my head when I feel butterflies in my stomach during stressful times.
Nope, it's actual physiological chaos happening down there.
Wow, this is really eye-opening.
Yeah. And,
We think about stress as this mental or emotional burden,
right?
but it's clearly so much more than that.
It's a whole body experience.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
affecting us from head to toe.
Exactly. And the impact goes even further.
Oh, no, what else?
Chronic stress can weaken your immune system,
Really?
making you more susceptible to infections and illnesses.
Oh, so when we're stressed, we're not only more likely to get sick, but we're also less equipped to fight it off.
It's like your body's defense system is constantly on high alert,
Okay.
fighting off imaginary threats.
Uh-huh.
So then it's vulnerable when the real threats come along.
Okay, this is all pretty overwhelming.
I know it's a lot.
But before we spiral into a stress-induced panic attack, let's talk about solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Because thankfully, the research you provided offers some hope.
Definitely. It
Yeah.
suggests that we don't have to be victims of stress.
Right.
There are things we can do to manage it effectively.
That's good to hear. So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, what's exciting is that we have a range of options.
Okay.
From modern scientific techniques
Oh.
to ancient wisdom practices.
All right, let's dive into those solutions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored the science of stress. We've seen how it impacts us from head to toe.
Yep.
Now let's talk about what we can actually do about it.
Right.
Because the research that you sent me
Yeah,
is packed with potential solutions.
it is.
And I'm ready to turn this knowledge into action.
That's the spirit.
So what kind of things?
What's really encouraging?
Yeah.
We're not limited to just one approach.
Oh, yeah.
We can create a personalized stress management toolkit,
I love that.
drawing from both modern science and ancient wisdom.
That sounds empowering.
Yeah.
So on the modern science side,
Okay.
what kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, one of the most effective and well-researched strategies is exercise.
Oh, yeah. Exercise is always the answer, it seems.
It really is.
But why?
Well, think back to that fight or flight response we talked about.
Okay.
Exercise essentially tricks your body into thinking you've actually fought off that saber-toothed tiger.
Okay.
Provides a healthy outlet for all that pent-up energy.
Yeah.
Helps regulate those stress hormones.
So it's like giving our bodies the physical release they're craving.
Exactly.
When times get tough, what kind of exercise are we talking about?
Well,
Does it have to be intense workouts, or can a simple walk around the block do the trick?
that's the great thing about exercise. Any type of movement can be beneficial.
Really?
Whether it's
Gotcha.
brisk walking, dancing,
Okay.
swimming, hitting the gym.
Yeah.
The key is to find something you enjoy.
Uh-huh.
and that you can stick with consistently.
See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
One intense workout isn't going to magically erase all my stress.
It's not a quick fix.
It's about building healthy habits over time.
It is.
Okay.
Exactly.
So speaking of healthy habits, another powerful tool from the Modern Science Toolkit is mindfulness meditation.
Yes,
This has become so popular in recent years.
it has.
And for good reason. But what does it actually look like in practice?
So imagine this.
Yeah.
You're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Your mind is racing
Happens all the time.
with a million thoughts.
Right.
Instead of getting caught up in that whirlwind, you take a few deep breaths
Okay.
and you focus on your senses, the feeling of your breath,
Got it.
the sounds around you,
Okay.
the taste in your mouth.
So we're just observing
Exactly.
without judgment.
You're just observing these sensations without labeling them as good or bad.
That's hard.
It can be, but it helps create a sense of space
Okay.
between you and your thoughts,
I see.
allowing you to respond to stress more calmly
Interesting.
and skillfully.
So it's like training our minds to be more aware and less reactive to ups and downs that life throws at us.
Yeah, it's about developing a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
That's powerful.
It is.
Especially in today's world, it feels like we're constantly bombarded with stressors.
We are.
So this is really valuable.
And here's the even better part. Research shows that mindfulness meditation can actually change the structure and function of your brain,
Really?
making you more resilient to stress over time.
So it's like building a mental fortress of serenity.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's a great way to think about it.
It makes mindfulness feel less abstract and more like something I can actually achieve.
It is achievable.
Okay, so we've got exercise, we've got mindfulness in our toolkit.
Okay.
What else does modern science offer for stress management?
Another interesting technique is biofeedback.
Biofeedback.
This one's a bit more techy,
Okay.
but it can be super helpful.
Right.
It uses sensors to monitor your physiological responses to stress.
So like our heart rate, our breathing.
Yeah, like heart rate, muscle tension, skin temperature.
So we can actually see what stress is doing to our bodies in real time.
You can?
That's kind of cool.
It is pretty cool.
So what do we do with that information?
Well, the really cool part is that by seeing these responses, you learn to consciously control them. Yeah, it's like taking the reins of your own stress response
Wow.
and training your body to relax even under pressure.
So no more letting stress run the show.
Exactly.
We're taking back control.
You got it.
Okay, so modern science has provided some really powerful tools,
Yeah.
but we also talked about ancient wisdom having a role to play in stress management.
Yes,
Can you remind us what those are and how they work?
absolutely. So the Islamic sources you provided highlight practices like prayer,
Okay.
remembrance of God, and cultivating virtues like patience and gratitude.
So it's about connecting to something bigger than ourselves
It is.
and shifting our perspective.
Exactly.
So how does that work?
Well, prayer in the Islamic context is seen as a direct line of communication with God,
Okay.
a way to seek guidance,
Okay.
support, and solace
Yeah.
when life feels overwhelming.
That makes sense.
It's about surrendering your worries to a higher power and finding comfort in that surrender.
And what about the remembrance of God, the dhikr?
Right, so dhikr is the practice of repeating calming phrases or verses from the Quran.
Okay.
And this can be incredibly effective in calming the mind,
Interesting.
focusing attention,
Yeah.
and fostering a sense of connection to the divine.
So it's almost like mindfulness,
It is very similar.
but with a spiritual dimension.
Exactly.
I could see how that would bring a sense of peace and grounding during difficult times.
Yeah. And then there are virtues like patience and gratitude.
Right.
These are essential qualities that help us navigate life's challenges
Sure.
with grace and resilience.
And?
Patience allows us to endure hardship without getting overwhelmed,
Yeah.
while gratitude helps us appreciate the good in our lives, even amidst stress.
So it's about focusing on what we do have
Yes,
rather than what we lack.
exactly.
Powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this incredible array of tools,
We do.
both modern and ancient,
Yep.
for managing stress.
Yes.
But with so many options.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming to know where to start.
Right.
So what do we do?
The key is to experiment
Okay.
and find what works best for you.
Right, because not every technique is going to resonate with everyone.
Exactly what helps one person might not work for another. It's
Right.
about creating a personalized stress management plan
Okay.
that fits your individual needs and preferences.
I love that empowerment through knowledge and choice. This
Exactly.
has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has been fun.
We've gone from the science of stress
Uh-huh.
to the power of both modern and ancient solutions.
Yeah,
And it's clear that we have more control over our well-being than we often realize.
absolutely.
So as we wrap up, what's the biggest takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important message is that stress doesn't have to define us.
Yeah.
By understanding how stress works,
Okay.
exploring the diverse tools available, and taking proactive steps to manage it,
Right.
we can build a life that is both fulfilling and resilient.
Beautifully said. So, dear listeners, as you go forth from this deep dive, we leave you with this final thought.
Right.
What will you do differently
Yeah.
to keep that inner seesaw balanced?
Good question.
What tools or practices will you embrace to navigate the inevitable stresses of life with grace and strength? And never underestimate the power of a deep breath, a mindful moment, or a heartfelt prayer. Until next time, happy diving.